Literally no offense to anything. They're very proud to cast a Latino actress as Snow White. It makes no sense to me. You're progressive in one way, but you're still making that backward story of seven dwarves living in a cave. What the are you doing, man?
This would have been a lot better if they, had a strong male along with her, a prince, if it wasn't about socialism, if they didn't remove the dwarves, if they had real dwarves.
The Snow White disaster, how Rachel Zegler and Peter Dinklage's feud derailed Disney's remake. In Hollywood's long history of troubled productions, few have spiraled into controversy, quite like Disney's live-action Snow White. What began as an ambitious reimagining of the studio's first animated feature quickly descended into what industry insiders now call the Snow White disaster.
They're remaking the movie, they just got rid of the dwarfs. Okay,
but what do they call them?
Why would they get rid of the dwarves, though?
Magical creatures.
But they have one token dwarf amongst these magical creatures.
At the center of the storm stands an unexpected conflict rising star. Rachel Zegler allegedly blames none other than Peter Dinklage for the film's spectacular collapse. The controversy that engulfed Snow White wasn't just about creative differences or studio meddling. It exposed a fundamental tension in Hollywood's approach to modernizing beloved classics, with careers caught in the crossfire and reputations hanging in the balance. How did Disney's attempt to update its most iconic fairy tale go so catastrophically wrong? And is it possible that a few critical comments from Dinklage set off a chain reaction that doomed the entire project before cameras even rolled?
Argument should have been from Peter Dinklage. There's power of being on TV, there's power of television, and to put 7 people with dwarfism on camera in a major Disney movie, there's still power there.
A casting announcement divides fans. When Disney announced Rachel Zegler as its new Snow White, the studio proudly touted the casting as a step toward greater diversity and inclusion. Fresh off her breakthrough role in West Side Story, Zegler represented the new face of Disney's princess, lineup talented, charismatic, and bringing much-needed representation to a character traditionally portrayed as European. Social media immediately erupted with divided opinions. Supporters celebrated Disney's progressive vision, while critics questioned whether the studio was sacrificing tradition for contemporary values. But this initial controversy would soon be overshadowed by a far more damaging critique from an unexpected voice in Hollywood. Enter Peter Dinklage. As production geared up, Peter Dinklage, Emmy-winning star of Game of Thrones and one of Hollywood's most respected actors with dwarfism, took aim at the project during a podcast appearance that would change everything.
Peter Dinklage destroyed Disney, and it could end up costing the company over $100 million.
Literally no offense to anyone, Dinklage began, in comments that quickly went viral. But I was a little taken aback that they were very proud to cast a Latina actress as Snow White. But you're still telling the story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It makes no sense to me. You're progressive in one way, but you're still making that backward story about 7 dwarves living in a cave.
Peter Dinklage comes into this as when Rachel Zegler was cast, he laughed at Disney saying it's fake progressivism. The reason being that Peter Dinklage, who does have achondroplasia, finds the depiction of the Seven Dwarfs very offensive.
Dinklage's criticism struck at the heart of Disney's approach, suggesting their diversity efforts were superficial, while failing to address what he saw as problematic elements in the original story. His comments didn't just raise questions, they ignited a firestorm that would haunt the production for months to come. Disney's panic response. Behind closed doors at Disney, insiders report that Dinklage's comments triggered immediate panic. Studio executives, already navigating the delicate task of modernizing the classic tale, now faced intense public scrutiny over their portrayal of the Seven Dwarfs.
Rachel Zegler is supposed to play Snow White. She's Latina. It says, literally no offense to anyone, but I was a little taken aback that they were very proud to cast a Latina actress as Snow White, but you're still telling the story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Characters central to the original story. The response was swift but chaotic. Script rewrites were ordered midway through pre-production. The creative team reportedly splintered into factions, some advocating to maintain the traditional narrative with respectful updates, others pushing for radical changes to address Dinklage's concerns. The most dramatic decision came when Disney allegedly chose to reimagine the dwarfs entirely.
Take a step back and look at what you're doing there. It makes no sense to me. You're progressive in one way, but then you're still making that backwards story about 7 dwarves living in a cave together. What the fuck are you doing, man? Have I done nothing to advance the cause from my soapbox? I guess I'm not loud enough.
Rather than casting actors with dwarfism, rumors suggested the studio would use digital effects to create magical creatures that bore little resemblance to the original characters. This decision, meant to sidestep controversy, instead created new problems. Actors with dwarfism, who had hoped for high-profile roles, now found themselves excluded from what could have been a career-defining opportunity. As one actor actor with dwarfism, later commented, "There's power in being on TV, there's power in television, and to put 7 people with dwarfism on camera in a major Disney movie, there's still power there."
Argument should have been from Peter Dinklage, there's power of being on TV, there's power of television, and to put 7 people with dwarfism on camera in a major Disney movie, there's still power there.
A production spirals out of control. As filming progressed, whispers of trouble multiplied. Test screenings reportedly produced lukewarm responses at best, with audiences describing the film as tonally inconsistent and narratively confused. The story seemed caught between honoring the original fairy tale and aggressively distancing itself from elements now deemed problematic. Production insiders described a set plagued by uncertainty. Scenes were reportedly rewritten and reshot multiple times as the creative direction continued to shift.
If the story is offensive, change the story, don't change the characters.
The film's message about female empowerment, meant to be its modern cornerstone, allegedly got lost amid the chaotic attempts to address the dwarfs' controversy. Rachel Zegler, as the face of the troubled production, increasingly found herself in an impossible position, defending a film that was changing beneath her feet while navigating the intense scrutiny that comes with redefining an iconic character. The blame game begins. It was during this turbulent period that the most explosive rumor emerged. Rachel Zegler privately blamed Peter Dinklage for the production's mounting problems. According to unverified sources close to the actress, Zegler allegedly confided to associates that Dinklage's comments had forced dramatic changes to the film, leaving her performance disjointed and the storyline fractured. Whether these rumors accurately reflected Zegler's private thoughts remains unconfirmed, but the narrative gained traction, especially among fans frustrated by the negative press surrounding the film before it even reached theaters.
And I get it, there's a difference between spoiling and whatever, but to go out and badmouth everybody and talk smack about, older movies in the same franchise, the canon story, I guess?
Yeah.
I don't know, dude. I feel like they would have had better control over that.
She feels like she's been made the face of a controversy she didn't create, one alleged insider claimed. The entire production was derailed trying to address concerns about characters that could have been thoughtfully updated without completely abandoning the story's core. Dinklage himself remained conspicuously quiet as these rumors circulated, neither confirming nor denying whether he was aware of Zegler's alleged frustration. His silence only fueled further speculation about tensions between the 2 high-profile actors who had never actually shared a set.
Because right now there's more dwarves on this podcast than there are in the new Snow White movie. And that's probably due to Peter Dinklage.
Yep.
A divided industry. The controversy exposed deep divisions within Hollywood about how to approach representation in modern retellings of classic stories. Some industry voices supported Dinklage's stance, arguing that powerful studios should be held accountable for how they portray marginalized groups. Others, including several actors with dwarfism, criticized Dinklage's comments as having inadvertently harmed their community. Dylan Postel, another actor with dwarfism, publicly stated that Dinklage was being selfish and that the community needs more work.
Peter Dinklage was criticized by some actors with similar conditions, like Dylan Postel said Peter Dinklage was being selfish and that community needs more work,
suggesting that the roles Disney might now avoid offering represented valuable opportunities. It's this weird thing where he's saying like, oh, it's bad that we're still doing Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, so he doesn't necessarily want that, one actor commented. But as little people actors, it's like, well, we kind of want to work.
It's this weird thing where he's saying, like, oh, it's bad that we're still doing Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, so he doesn't necessarily want that. But as little people actors, it's like, well, we kind of want to work. We kind of want...
This complex debate revealed there was no simple solution to updating fairy tales with problematic elements. Each creative decision carried implications that extended far beyond the script, affecting real careers and real communities in the process. A release overshadowed by controversy. When Snow White finally reached audiences, it arrived bearing the weight of all the preceding controversy.
Peter Dinklage said that Disney casting Rachel Zegler is their way to feel good about themselves while ignoring a much bigger problem.
Critics and viewers alike struggled to evaluate the film on its own merits, their perceptions inevitably colored by the tumultuous production history and the swirling rumors of behind-the-scenes tensions. Reviews frequently pointed to disjointed storytelling and inconsistent tone, exactly the problems test audiences had reportedly identified months earlier. The portrayal of the dwarfs, or their replacements, drew particular scrutiny, with many noting that the final version seemed to reflect compromise rather than conviction. Disney's marketing team appeared to struggle with positioning the film, ultimately taking a subdued approach that neither directly addressed the controversies nor strongly championed the creative choices made. For a studio accustomed to commanding the narrative around its releases, this unusually passive stance spoke volumes. The Jenna Ortega factor. Adding another layer to the unfolding drama, were persistent rumors that Disney was quietly exploring a second attempt at Snow White, this time with Wednesday star Jenna Ortega, potentially stepping into the iconic role. Though unconfirmed by the studio, the speculation gained traction among fans who saw Ortega as a fresh opportunity to restart the troubled adaptation with clearer creative direction. Social media lit up with enthusiastic support for the rumored recast, with fans creating mock posters and speculative trailers imagining how Ortega might reinvent the character. The groundswell of excitement for a movie that didn't even exist underscored just how deeply the actual production had disappointed audiences. For Zegler, these rumors must have stung, suggesting that her performance was somehow responsible for the film's failings, rather than the chaotic production environment critics had described.
Or can we just say midgie?
Okay. Midget, dwarf, they're out of work. They're replaced by CGI things. Yes. Like, this is just a perfect
example. That.
When there's
thing 12.
There's no guiding principle, just progress for the sake of progress, and you're just trying to weave around a fence after a
Once again, the actress found herself bearing the public face of disappointment for decisions made far above her pay grade. Hollywood's tarnished mirror. The Snow White controversy ultimately revealed uncomfortable truths about Hollywood's approach to updating beloved classics. The studio found itself trapped between competing imperatives, honoring nostalgic attachment to the original while addressing legitimate concerns about outdated portrayals. In attempting to navigate these treacherous waters, Disney appeared to lose sight of the most important element, telling a coherent, engaging story that could stand on its own merits, regardless of its relationship to the source material.
With Snow White, let's go through this, right? There's no prince. Woman doesn't need a prince.
Oh, Lord.
Really? Okay, good luck back then.
By responding reactively to each wave of criticism, the production never established a clear creative vision that could withstand public scrutiny. Perhaps most tragically, the controversy stemming from Dinklage's comments about representation ironically resulted in less representation for actors with dwarfism, not more. In seeking to avoid one potential problem, the production created a pattern that repeated throughout the troubled project.
And someone goes like, hey, Seven Dwarfs is offensive to midgets. You're like, oh, okay, so let's just not employ any of them.
Yes, Peter Dinklage.
Lessons from a fairy tale gone wrong. As the dust settled on what industry analysts now routinely call the Snow White disaster, the lingering question remains, what could Disney have done differently? Some suggest the studio should have engaged more directly with the concerns raised by Dinklage from the beginning, perhaps even inviting him to consult on respectful ways to update the characters while still providing opportunities for actors with dwarfism. Others believe the production should have established a clear creative direction and stuck to it, rather than allowing external commentary to repeatedly alter its course. The rumored tension between Zegler and Dinklage, whether real or imagined, symbolizes the larger conflicts at play in modern Hollywood. Two talented performers, both advocating for better representation in their own ways, found themselves positioned as opponents in a narrative neither of them controlled. For studios contemplating similar adaptations, Snow White now serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder that modernizing beloved stories requires more than surface-level changes and diversity casting.
Disney has cast Rachel Zegler to play Snow White, which caused a lot of controversy because Zegler is Hispanic and the character is traditionally German. There's now an effort in Hollywood to not cast little people and instead do things like cast Hugh Grant as an Oompa Loompa.
It demands thoughtful engagement with the core elements that made these stories resonate in the first place, and a willingness to reimagine them with integrity rather than fear. An unfinished story. The Snow White saga continues to evolve. Rachel Zegler has moved on to other high-profile projects, working to establish herself beyond the controversy that threatened to define her early career. Peter Dinklage remains a respected voice on representation issues in Hollywood, though he has largely refrained from commenting further on this particular production.
That part, and if that's what's available, then that's what we'd like to do. But at the same time, I get what he's saying, because yeah, people are like, well, was it that bad? I go, yeah, because at the time, dwarves really didn't have any representation.
Disney, for its part, faces difficult questions about its live-action remake strategy. After a string of successful, if creatively safe adaptations, Snow White represented an ambitious attempt to significantly reimagine a classic tale for modern sensibilities. Its troubled production and reception may cause the studio to reconsider how aggressively it pursues such updates in the future. The alleged blame that Zegler placed on Dinklage, whether confirmed or not, has become part of Hollywood lore, a tale of how external commentary can reshape an entire production and potentially derail careers in the process. It serves as a reminder that in today's interconnected media landscape, no film exists in isolation from the conversations surrounding it. What began as an attempt to bring greater diversity to an iconic role became a flashpoint for deeper debates about representation, creative integrity, and the challenges of honoring cultural touchstones while acknowledging their limitations.
Doesn't need a prince to save her, and not surrounded by 7 weird people. Oh, okay, just CGI fictional goblins, I guess.
In that sense, the true story of Snow White's remake may be more compelling, and certainly more revealing, than the film itself ever managed to be. The mirror on the wall revealed uncomfortable truths about an industry still struggling to find its way in changing times. Whether Disney and other studios will learn from these reflections remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: the next attempt to reimagine a beloved classic will be watched more closely than ever before.